We have Velina Tchakarova, founder, FAZE Geopolitical Consultancy, over 25 years of experience in geopolitics. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So what would you say about the results? What is the future of EU now, and especially the future of EU's support for Ukraine in face of what just happened yesterday?
Of course, we are still dealing with preliminary results. We don't have the final outcome. Right now, my projections already show that the National Conservative Group, where, for instance, Meloni's party is situated, is already actually taking the third place, which was actually projected, which also means that the Liberal Renew group is on the fourth place. Now, the good news first, the center holds the pan-European party. The only pan-European party practically is the EPP group, and that means that together with the Social Democrats and the Liberals, that is the Renew, they still have the majority for legislative power, including obviously important decisions when it comes to the future European Union budget, when it comes to decisions related to Ukraine, and also when it comes to the enlargement process. So here, I think we have a very solid center in a sense which has been working in the previous mandate of the institutions. Most likely, this is my expectation, we will see also candidates, and I do not mean only von der Leyen, who wants to be re-elected as president of the Commission, but probably we will see also the leaders of the Social Democrat group and the Renew group also sending their leaders to be elected on key European Union positions. I think this is going to provide stability. Now let's talk about the bad news from the preliminary election outcome. And here we have obviously leaning towards right-wing, far-right parties, which are quite fragmented. We already heard from your report that there is a very strong, let's say, representation on behalf of the far-right parties. They have scored quite well in several European Union member states, specifically, of course, the key case being France, where practically this resulted in Macron announcing the snap elections. But let me clarify here that these three groups of the ID fraction, the conservative fraction of Meloni, and also 77 members which are so-called non-aligned. This is a fractured and fragmented group. I do not expect them to actually come together and, let's say, present more united fraction within the European Parliament. And even if that would be the case, they would still need actually parliamentarians from, let's say, the center-right EPP group to build a coalition majority in the European Parliament. None of the other parties on the center-left would actually collaborate with them if it's about, let's say, populist agenda, and specifically because this is today the most important topic, if some of those parties are also showing, let's say, pro-Russian attitudes in the way they vote or in the way they create, noise in the parliament when it comes to very important debates.
Because that's a very common denominator we have when we talk about the far-right parties. It's their stance on Russia, and therefore I'd like to ask you about the election results in Austria, because the FPÖ party won the election. So what's that stance on Russia and in general on the war in Ukraine?
So first important information for you is that this European Parliament election gave us also a sense of what's about to come, because Austria is facing also parliamentarian election in September, and obviously the far-right party is polling first there as well, and we may actually expect even, let's say, a bigger share of voter outcome, because typically more voters come to the national election as compared to the to the European election. What does it mean is that the FPÖ is a very, very typical player in the family of right-wing and far-right parties right now, especially when it comes to Russia. Why? Currently there are several scandals going on in in Austria when it comes to specific links such as the Wirecard Marsalek CEO CFO scandal, who apparently has had connections to intelligence services and also party members of FPÖ. All of these are speculations. We do not have a commission to investigate on these matters, and I do not expect that there will be any serious investigation on the matter given the upcoming election. But I'm just highlighting some of these, scandals for you to understand and to get the mood in the country. We also had spying scandals. The intelligence services are still more or less isolated from, getting information from the family of, let's say, European intelligence services, not to speak of actually intelligence information from NATO, which is why the coalition government of the Greens and the EPP, practically the EPP Conservative Party, sent a letter together with the three other neutral countries for more cooperation and exchange of information with NATO. And this, as you can imagine, unleashed a serious, let's say, debate in the country. And this debate was also provoked by the FPÖ. Now, this is also a party that has signed official memorandum of understanding with United Russia, the party of Putin, prior to, the beginning of the war, but still, of course, is one, I think, the first party in Europe that has signed such memorandum. And also, you should not forget that in 2018, Austria, at that time, a coalition between, the conservatives and the far right, practically also signed contract for gas supply, and Putin was on a state visit. So it is a quite of a, I would say, revealing picture when it comes to the dubious links of this party on political, economic, financial, and even, if you like, at the level of intelligence sharing with Russia. So the expectation is obviously that the parliamentarians from this party will obviously play a counter role in the European Parliament.
We're talking about security. Security is one of those topics that is at stake here, especially when it comes to the European Union structures. As we look at what happened in France right now, and we heard from our guest before, we have snap elections on the 30th of June and the 7th of July. That makes one supporter of Ukraine in this battle against Russia. We should not forget, although they're no longer part of the EU, there is a general election coming up in the UK on the 4th of July. So there is a lot of that happening. There is an election taking place in September in Austria as well, as you mentioned. Hungary is taking over the EU presidency in July as well. There's a lot piling up, a lot at stake. Do you think that this combination of factors could potentially embolden Russia to take further steps and potentially influence the European security?
I absolutely do. In fact, if I were a certain person sitting in Moscow, I would be popping the champagne already, given the election outcome from this election cycle for the European Parliament, and also given the upcoming political vacuum in one of the key supporters of Ukraine, that is France, under the guidance of and the leadership of the French president, but also given the precarious situation of the coalition government in Germany, which scored very badly, as we know, in this European parliamentarian election. And obviously also there we saw and heard about some voices of, let's say, preliminary election. Germany is facing actually its next election in 2025. So if we assume that the snap election in France would also unleash, let's say, another cascading effect of political vacuum also at the level of European Union institutions, because I do not expect that von der Leyen or any other serious candidate would actually be able to secure the needed overwhelming support without actually the French President Macron, who will be dealing with its own election, cycle. So if we assume that this political vacuum would occur on both European Union level and in the most important European Union member states, and also in UK, as you mentioned, I think that this is just a recipe for geopolitical disaster in the next 6 to 12 months.
What a somber
Yeah,
way
Vladimir
to
Putin sipping
finish this
champagne to the
interview.
result of the European Parliament elections. It just doesn't sound very good.
It just doesn't look very good. Velina Tchakarova, founder of Phase Geopolitical Consultancy, thank you for joining.
Thank you for the invitation.